Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Cookies Enabled. Today we are going to be covering some really interesting theories that have been circling the internet webs, and we're going to be breaking them down on a psychological level and trying to explain them. Our first and foremost is going to be the Mandela Effect. So stick around and let's find out more, and hopefully we can all learn something together. Okay, so let's break down the Mandela Effect. What really is it? How does it make actual sense and fit into the theories of multiverse? So really, the Mandela Effect is the fact that instead of having multiple universes being parallel, meaning they're running side by side but they never cross, they actually for some reason are now crossing. And so you're having some people remembering events that didn't happen, but to them are so real, they have a physical memory they can recall, and that is in some cases backed up with some kind of circumstantial evidence, and in some cases we're talking like logo changes and stuff, and we'll get into all of the semantics behind some of these theory claims in a little bit later here in the video. So the Mandela Effect, really its backbone is on the idea of a multiverse theory, which means that every time you change something or choose something, that spins off a whole nother universe that is parallel to ours and shouldn't ever come in contact. But for whatever reason, in this Mandela Effect, we are crossing and getting kind of in each other's way. And so what's happening here? The first one, obviously what it's named after, is the Mandela, Nelson Mandela. Let me see if I can pull his picture up here really quickly on the screen. There he is. So this is wonderful Mr. Mandela, and unfortunately he gets named after this, not necessarily in a bad way, but because some people actually remember him going to prison back in the 80s, which did actually happen, but dying a horrific death in prison, and had this huge funeral. Apparently it was broadcast on TV. Now, as I was digging through my 1980s to 1990s funerals on TV, I mean, the list is pretty dang amazingly long, but there were actually a few key ones that happened right around the time that Mr. Mandela was actually going to prison. So they may have actually heard two separate events that their memory over time is trying to compress down into one event, and we're going to explain that a little more too later. So that's the main thing, is that a lot of people, almost a good 40% of the population, believe that Mr. Mandela here did die in the 1980s and not in 2013, like we all remember. I think I actually may have gotten that right. Maybe it was 2009. I may have that date wrong, so you might have to double check me there. But other ones that have popped up are the Wizard of Oz, such as, what color were Dorothy's socks? Were they white? Were they blue? Did she have a bow on her red shoes? Did the Tin Man have a bow tie on? And I'm going to pull up the picture of the Wizard of Oz Blu-ray case. As you can see, blue socks, bow on the shoe, bow tie. These were little things that, again, and we mostly saw this as a kid. You're not paying attention to these tiny little details. And I'm also going to explain why we might have another version in our memory as to why these socks and smaller details are different. The list goes really long for the Wizard of Oz as to the Mandela Effect and changes to our universe, including the color of the daisies, exactly the line that the witch says. I'm not going to dive into that like a lot of the other videos on YouTube have. We have a lot to cover. So a few other ones that I want to bring up are the Monopoly Man. He has been a big one for a while, and sorry, I'm trying to remove some of these images here. This one, Mr. Monopoly Man has had some issues with the monocle, and some people say they remember him with a monocle. Other people say they don't remember him with a monocle. I don't ever remember him having one. And again, we're going to get into that. There's also Looney Tunes. Was it Toons or Tunes? And Curious George, that's another one here. I'll pull his picture up. Did he have a tail? Did he not have a tail? I had a really hard time finding pictures with him having a tail. So again, how about Pikachu and his tail? Was it black? Was it yellow? Was it black and yellow? So there's a lot of issues here. And what we're really trying to explain, and really how this is all breaking down, is the theory of the multiverse. So the multiverse, again, as I kind of hit on earlier, is an explanation of how every time anything that has true free will, anytime they have to make a choice, and I say they because it's very vague as to what that actually entails. Every time a choice is made that could have had any vast number of infinite possibilities chosen otherwise, creates this masked bubble effect, where there are lines and lines and lines of infinite numbers of universes that are somehow slightly different and just close enough to our universe that you'd almost not even notice the difference. And so this is where people are thinking that this is actually what's happening with the Mandela Effect, is that our universes are somehow crashing together and becoming overlapped. And so you kind of get these bubbles where the two bubbles will actually collide and overlap like a Venn diagram, and inside that bubble you might have people remembering things one way while another person is remembering something else. So how does this come all together in reality? What are we talking about, and how does this actually make any sense? So to help kind of break it down some more, you might want to imagine the multiverse as balloons. So you'll have two balloons, let's say. One is our universe, and then you have another universe very similar, but maybe you're wearing blue instead of black jeans that day. So you have two different universes, but they are very, very, very similar, about 99.9999%. There might be like a 100 millionth of a degree off or something. So in a few examples, you could say that these two universes are actually not just crisscrossing, but actually colliding and leaving almost like what's known as shrapnel remnants of these time zones across the singular balloon that's left. As the one balloon pops crashing into the main balloon, it becomes scattered fragments on top of the other balloon. So you'd be having, again, these like time pockets that you'd be walking through. There is no scientific evidence to prove this. I couldn't even find sources to back any of this up. It's all very theoretical science. So I had to kind of spin off of that and try to find some real world examples. So instead of diving into Back to the Future and movies like that, I did find a show that was actually one of my old-time favorites called Fringe, and this aired on Fox for quite a while. You can stream it. I'm going to put the link down below. I think it's on Peacock. If you have that through your Xfinity service, you can watch it on that. I think it's also, it was on Hulu for a while. I think it's on IMDb TV, which is a streaming service now. So again, there's a few ways to watch it, but in the season 1, episode 19, it's called The Road Not Taken. And this explains really the best way to look at multiverse, because in this particular show, there are universes crashing into each other, and in reality, when you have these multiverses crashing into each other, they would actually be taking the place of the other universe, because again, you can't have space and time existing in the same place. It's the same as matter, since you can't have two atoms in the same space and time at the same spot. They have to share, and so you would not be able to have these two massive universes overlapping. That just does not work. Maybe if they're in different temporal zones, and again, we're not getting into that, but the show definitely does. And the technology seen in this show is probably the most intriguing I've seen in a really long time. I definitely recommend you watch it. It's very cool. It's kind of like X-Files, but very much from a Homeland security kind of standpoint. So really cool, really cool. The other thing I wanted to bring out is the fact that a researcher by the name of Elizabeth Loftus, and I really hope I'm not destroying that last name, actually a beautiful woman here, dove into these kinds of weird misunderstandings, because it's really kind of what they are. If you really dive back into history, there isn't any evidence to back up these people's claims. And like I was trying to say, it is very much a misunderstanding. And I myself took psychology and whatnot in college and as well as high school, obviously, but way deeper in college, and I very much enjoyed it. And I dove into my DSM trying to find some kind of dissociative disorder or something that could explain the Mandela effect, and that stumped me for days until I discovered her Miss Elizabeth's Loftus research. And she really dove into the idea that not only can you build a misconception of a memory, but you might actually be able to create an entire event that is completely false in your own mind. Now, she did this in several different ways. I'm not going to completely go into it, but if you do want to dive into my sources down below, please be my guest. There is plenty of evidence there to support all of the work that she did, and it's still to this day in the DSM called the Misinformation Effect. And you probably heard me say that a few times. And really, what is the Misinformation Effect? Well, it's when an original memory is formed. Maybe you're a kid or a young adult and you're watching, let's say, The Wizard of Oz. So this forms the original memory. And then as time moves on, you gain new information. Maybe SNL does a Wizard of Oz skit, and something is just slightly different. Yes, it's a yellow brick road, but maybe she had different socks and a different color dress and a different color bow or whatever it was. So your brain is tying this information back to its original memory, and time moves on, and so on and so forth. You get new information all of the time. Some of it is subliminal in advertising as well as just in regular life. And so for us to try to filter it all out when our brain is trying to connect it to original memories, it can actually alter that original memory that had actually placed us there. So a good example, again, like I try to say, is The Wizard of Oz. We all watched The Wizard of Oz. Let me bring up the picture here when I was a kid. And again, everybody argues about the socks and stuff. Let me explain the biggest misconception with this play is that it has been done so many times that I actually found pictures from the original Broadway play. And look at her socks. They're not blue, are they? And I don't even think she has bows on her shoes. I couldn't get the zoom to work enough, so I'm not going to distort the picture to heck trying to get you to see what I'm trying to show you. But that you may have seen this, maybe you didn't, maybe you heard it through the grapevine, whatever it is. Maybe you even saw an ad for this, and even the ad has white socks. So again, you could almost go, like I said, find explanations for all of these things, and I'm going to point out a lot of them, because the Misinformation Effect is exactly this. You had the original memory of The Wizard of Oz, and then maybe 5-10 years go by, some new information, a poster, something you see, an advertisement on TV because it's coming into a local theater near you or something, and somehow that is overwriting the original information or altering that original memory. It's not making it a false memory, but it's altering the original details. And this happens to everyone. You are not getting Alzheimer's or whatnot. This is just how it is. This is one reason why we don't use necessarily so much anymore eyewitness accounts, because they can change so much over time, especially with information being fed to these people. And this has been proven. Again, dive into Elizabeth's research. I beg of you. She really goes into a ton of detail on this as well. So what about our other pictures? I know I brought up the Monopoly Man. The biggest one here is that Monopoly was not only a huge board game for us kids, but most of us were not paying enough attention to Mr. Monopoly himself. We're trying to pick our pieces, and we're trying to move them across the board and buy properties and whatnot. We're just trying to play the game. We're not trying to decode hidden messages in the characters. But everybody seems to forget Mr. Peanut. And Mr. Peanut is dressed almost identically to your Monopoly Man, except for that he does have the monocle, and he actually is way older, almost the same age, if not older, than Mr. Monopoly. So this is the misconception that everybody's been trying to, again, it's just that our brain is taking similar things, not just objects, places, and times, and trying to link them, but memories of specific images and how they relate together. It's a pattern that we've all been trained to do with our brains over the years. There's nothing wrong with this, but this is what the Misinformation Effect is. It makes you believe, some cases, something happened that didn't even happen at all. And so that is really what's happening here. And so you don't really have this collision of multiverses like we've been saying, and so much, it's just spinning out of control on Reddit. Again, pick up a physics book. There's no math for this. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way you can explain that. Again, you wouldn't have the ability to recall old memories. If you were to cross completely over to another universe or have another universe collided together, it would create a brand new Earth. It would create a whole new universe where nobody remembers any of that history and no evidence of it is left. So that is where this has just spun out of control online, unfortunately, and everybody just needs to kind of step back. I do want to mention that mass hysteria did play a little bit into this, or something that's starting to be kind of looked into, and the best example of mass hysteria is on the episode House. Let me try to get you the exact, I think it's season 3, episode 18, and it is called Airborne. He is stuck on a plane with his boss, Cuddy, and one of the passengers starts to experience symptoms. Yes, that passenger actually is sick, but other people start getting symptoms, and House immediately points out that this is hysteria. And this is kind of what's happening digitally now, is that people can go onto these websites like Reddit and just post slews of random guesses and theories, and other people can build on this misinformation, which can actually, if you spend enough time thinking about it, generate a whole new made-up memory that can seem so real that nobody would be able to convince you otherwise. And that's why you need to pay attention to episodes of House like this, one of my favorites. Yes, some of these are completely fictional, especially this episode, except for the fact that pretty much everything that happens, you can pull up a DSM and go through and find all of these things I have mentioned. And again, I'm going to post tons of links below. So dig through my sources if you have more questions. Please, please, please let me know. And again, I really, really hope we all understand this really kind of comes down to math, misinformation, and I mean, I know I have done this over the years, and misremembered things and misstated things over the years, and it's one reason why I try to be super accurate on my station and on my channel. Try not to stretch it too much and make it too, indecisive. But I really hope everybody has had a great time listening and understanding that you're not crazy and I'm not crazy. Everything is legitimate. Don't feel like you need to go explore this Mandela effect any deeper. It is not Alice in Wonderland into a different dimension. You definitely don't need to worry about that. So hopefully you guys all learned something, and I really hope I will see you all in future episodes. Check us out on Wednesdays for our live shows every week, and hopefully we'll have some new guests coming up here. We're going to cover a lot of these topics as well, and things I couldn't cram into the video. But thanks again, everybody, and have a great night.